Hi, my name is Patrick, and today I'm going to share my story with you. It's about my journey to New York, where I had to face my fears, learn English, and discover that every small step counts. I hope my story inspires you to keep going, no matter where you are in your learning process. Let's get started. Patrick had always dreamed of visiting New York, but nothing could have prepared him for the overwhelming reality of standing on a crowded street in the middle of the city. The noise, the people, the flashing lights, all of it felt so different from his small town back in Brazil. "Okay, Patrick, you can do this," he whispered to himself, adjusting the strap of his backpack. He had been learning English for a while, but now, here, in the heart of the city, he felt a mix of excitement and fear. He had arrived just the day before, and today he was determined to start his adventure. He glanced at his phone. Abby, a friend he had met online, had agreed to meet him. Abby had been living in New York for a few years, and she was excited to help him navigate the city while practicing his English. She had warned him about the language barrier and how challenging it could be at first. But Patrick was ready. Or, at least, he hoped he was. Few minutes later, Patrick saw Abby from a distance, waving energetically. She was easy to spot. Her bright red jacket stood out against the gray street. As he approached her, his heart raced a little. He wanted to make a good impression, but speaking English in person felt so much harder than it had online. "Patrick, welcome to New York," Abby said, with a warm smile. Her voice was friendly, and her accent was clear. Patrick immediately felt a little more at ease. "Hi, Abby. It's great to finally meet you," Patrick replied, a little nervous. His English was far from perfect, but he was trying his best. Abby laughed softly. "Don't worry, Patrick. You're doing great. I'm sure you'll pick up the language in no time. Let's get you settled, and then we can explore the city together." Patrick smiled, feeling a little less anxious. This was the beginning of something new, and he was determined to embrace it. Abby led Patrick down the busy street, talking excitedly about the sights and sounds of New York. But Patrick couldn't focus on the words. He was trying to listen carefully, but everything seemed so fast. People were walking quickly, taxis honking, and he could barely understand anything in English. "I'm going to take you to a café near here. We'll grab something to drink and talk more," Abby said, noticing Patrick's distracted expression. They walked into a small, cozy café. The smell of coffee filled the air, and the warmth of the place was a relief from the cold outside. Patrick looked at the menu on the wall, trying to read the names of the drinks, but nothing seemed familiar. "What would you like to drink, Patrick?" Abby asked. Patrick stared at the menu, feeling a wave of anxiety. He didn't know how to ask for something in a way that would make sense. What if he ordered the wrong thing? What if he sounded silly? Abby noticed his hesitation. "Don't worry, Patrick. Just take a deep breath. You're doing fine. If you're unsure, I can help you." Patrick nodded, still feeling uncertain. He took a deep breath and walked up to the counter. "Excuse me, I'd like a coffee?" The barista smiled kindly. "Sure. What kind of coffee would you like?" Patrick froze. He hadn't expected the question to be more complicated. "Uh, just a regular coffee?" The barista nodded. "Got it. Anything else?" Patrick quickly glanced at Abby, who gave him an encouraging smile. He managed to say, "No, that's all. Thank you." As he walked back to the table with Abby, he felt both relieved and embarrassed. "I don't think I did very well," he admitted. Abby smiled. "You did just fine. It's normal to feel unsure, but you're learning. It's all part of the process." Patrick smiled back, feeling a little better. He had taken a small step, but it felt like a victory. The next day, Abby suggested they explore another part of the city. Let's go to the park today. You can practice your English with some people, and I can help you with new words along the way. As they walked through the park, Patrick couldn't help but notice the vastness of New York. He had never seen so many people from so many different backgrounds in one place. It was both exciting and overwhelming. They sat on a bench, and Abby began a conversation with a woman sitting nearby. After a few minutes, Abby turned to Patrick. "This is Rachel. She's from Australia, and she's been living in New York for a few years. Rachel, this is Patrick. He's learning English." Rachel smiled warmly and greeted Patrick. "Hi, Patrick. It's nice to meet you." Patrick felt his heart race. He wanted to respond, but he wasn't sure what to say. Abby noticed his hesitation and gently nudged him. "Go ahead, Patrick. Just say hi, like we practiced." Patrick took a deep breath and managed to say, "Hi, Rachel. Nice to meet you." Rachel's smile grew. "Nice to meet you, too. How long have you been in the city?" Patrick's mind raced. This was his chance to practice. I just arrived yesterday," he said, his voice shaky but determined. "That's exciting," Rachel said. "What do you think of the city so far?" Patrick paused, thinking for a moment. "It's big and fast, but I'm excited to explore more." Rachel nodded. "Yeah, it can be overwhelming at first, but you'll get used to it. You'll be speaking English like a pro in no time." Patrick smiled, feeling a sense of pride. He had done it. He had had a conversation with someone in English, and it felt good. A few days later, Patrick was walking alone through the city. Abby had given him a list of things to do and places to visit, and today he was taking on the challenge of navigating the subway system. He had never taken the subway before, and the thought of doing it alone made his heart race. But he knew it was important to face his fear. Patrick stood in front of the subway map, trying to make sense of the routes. He felt a little lost, but then he remembered something Abby had told him. If you don't understand something, don't be afraid to ask. He took a deep breath and approached a woman standing nearby. "Excuse me, could you help me? I'm trying to get to, Times Square?" The woman smiled. "Of course. Just take the one train to 42nd Street. It's the easiest way." Patrick nodded, thanking her. As he walked toward the platform, he felt a rush of confidence. He had asked for help, and it had worked. He wasn't as afraid as before. When he finally reached Times Square, he looked around in awe. The lights, the billboards, the crowds. It was everything he had imagined and more. Patrick took a moment to enjoy the view, feeling proud of himself for overcoming his fear. That evening, Patrick sat by the window in his room, looking out at the city. He had been here for a week now, and the initial fear and excitement had started to settle into something more comfortable. He wasn't fluent in English yet, but he could communicate. He could get by. And that was enough for now. Abby had invited him to dinner that evening, and as they sat at a small restaurant, Patrick felt a sense of gratitude. He had come a long way since that first nervous day in New York. "You've made so much progress," Abby said, smiling. "When you first arrived, you seemed so unsure. But now, look at you. You're speaking with more confidence. I'm really proud of you." Patrick smiled, his heart warming. "I didn't think I could do it. But now, I feel like I'm actually living here, not just visiting. It's like English is becoming part of my world." Abby nodded. "That's the real power of language. It's not just about learning words. It's about connecting with people, understanding a new culture, and truly living in the moment." Patrick looked around the restaurant, reflecting on how far he had come. A week ago, this place would have felt foreign and intimidating. Now, he felt at home. As the night drew to a close, Patrick felt a sense of peace. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but he was no longer afraid. He was learning, growing, and embracing every step of the journey. The city, the language, the people. It was all becoming a part of him. Abby's words echoed in his mind. The key is to keep going. No matter how small the steps are, they all lead somewhere. Patrick smiled to himself. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new conversations, and new lessons, and he was ready to face them all. The adventure was just beginning. I hope you enjoyed Patrick's story and his journey to learn English in New York. He faced challenges, but with every step, he became more confident. Remember, learning a new language is a journey, and every small progress counts. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Hit the bell to not miss the next adventures and learning tips. Keep practicing and see you next time.